All right. Good evening. Good evening, everybody. Hello to those of you who are catching this on the replay. Welcome to another Dear Single Woman Conversations. Listen, y'all, if you enjoyed last week, tonight is going to be even better. So, listen, let me explain something to y'all. The guests that come on with me, they have no idea what we're going to talk about until they get on the show. So, there's no pre questions, there's no prompting of them at all. So they have absolutely no idea what topic I'm going to present for us to discuss until we are actually already live. So their answers are their answers. They didn't have time to think about it. They didn't have time to be politically correct or any of that. We're having an adult, mature conversation with complete transparency and honesty. All right. So I want you guys to sit back and enjoy because I'm gonna bring on two guests on tonight, and I'm super excited to have both of these ladies with me on tonight. They're gonna add so much value to this conversation. I'm telling you, y'all, it's gonna be amazing. I cannot wait. So let's go. All right, so Tiffany and Christy, hey y'all.
Hey.
So go ahead and introduce who you are and what you do, and then we're gonna dive right into it because I can't wait.
So I guess I'll go first. My name is Tiffany Forrest, and I am a mortgage underwriter. I own Woe Power Consulting, which basically empowers women to go to their next level, and also TIF Development. We just develop land, basically. And yeah, so that's me.
And my name is Christy Simmons, and I am a paralegal at a law firm in Columbia.
Yay!
Yay.
So, ladies, listen, thank you so much for joining in with me on tonight. Listen, tonight is going to be absolutely amazing. I was thinking about this topic for a while, and I was just thinking about it from a personal aspect and how this has been one of my struggles as it relates to relationships. I don't do this well, so I'm just going to put that out there. Well, let me retract that. I have not done this well in the past. However, the lessons learned has taught me to be better for the future. Okay. Let me just say that. So today we're going to talk about boundaries. Creating healthy boundaries. And one of the things that I learned probably within the last year or so, specifically about boundaries in Dr. Darius Daniels' Relational Intelligence books, and he talks about this. He says, boundaries are not for the other person. Boundaries are for you. And when I tell you I have failed the boundaries test over and over and over again and trying to figure out why this ain't working, because I did not have healthy boundaries for myself, because I'm like, I'm either all in or all out. And if I'm all in, it's like I'm all the way in. And there's no healthy boundaries there to say, hey, you need to hold up. Don't be doing too much too quick. You know what I'm saying? Because one thing I know about people, the more you do and there's a benefit for them, they ain't gonna stop you. And that's for both sides. Like that's not a gender specific. That is both sides of the equation. The more you do, the more they benefit, they are not gonna stop you.
Nope.
They will not. Now you talking about like boundaries in a relationship, boundaries in general, like
boundaries in a relationship, boundaries while we're dating with the opposite sex.
Yeah.
Even in developing those friendships. Last week we talked about we're so quick to own and we're not quick to friend, because I believe that sometimes if you take time to get to know somebody, you may realize I don't need this to be romantic. This is really can be a good friend. I think we mess up friendships because we're too quick to run into ownership. Yeah. And that comes with not setting boundaries. For people who are eager, who don't want to be lonely, and sometimes you don't know how to create that healthy boundary for yourself, right? So for instance, after a few dates, all of a sudden you cooking a full course meal. Why? Guilty. Why?
Yeah.
You don't even know them. You didn't got them comfortable. They didn't cook their shoes off, laying on your couch, talking about something. You fixing my plate? Sure. Why? Y'all ain't
Right. Yeah.
Oh.
And there's so many boundaries that you can have, like within a relationship, right? Like you can have boundaries like intellectual boundaries, right? Like you don't want people all up in your phone automatically, right? You don't want people on your computer. You don't want to share your personal information. Like you're not getting my bank account information. We're not on that level as, you know, as far as like it comes to, you know, boundaries or physical boundaries, right? Like what, you know, the type of, you know, what you will allow, right? What you will allow physically or whatever. I mean, emotional boundaries. It's just all sorts of, now that I'm thinking about it. It's a ton of boundaries that
Yes.
we have to learn how to set in relationships. Like as we, you know, meet people initially, you know, everybody's not privy to all your personal information, all your whole background. You know, sometimes I feel like women, you know, and I hate to say this, but we go into like, even on the first date, we will sit down and tell our whole life, all in that first conversation. You knew where I grew up, my parents, what happened, how they divorced, my whole relationship, how much money I got, what I want, what type of man I desire, what I don't want, like every single thing, all up in that first conversation. You have set no walls, no boundaries, you know, and the word tells us to guard our hearts. You know, that's a boundary right there. I mean, you can't just put everything out there. So that's kind of how I look at it.
Wow. I'm gonna piggyback on kind of like on both of what you were saying. For me, um, I'm divorced, but I was married over 20 some years. So when I started back today, it was totally different. I feel like compared to when I was younger, it's just like, okay, this is what we're doing now. But even for me, before I started dating, I had made up in my mind. First of all, I wanted to, be healed from everything from my past. I wanted to deal with any ongoing issues that I may not have dealt with, even going into the marriage or even from childhood on up, because I didn't want to have to experience that and take that into my future. So even as I started dating, guys here and there, I had to set certain boundaries. If I felt like um, maybe he was getting too close, or if something was kind of off, okay, let's step back. But want to let me evaluate why I'm feeling this way and if it should proceed on. So I mean, it's, like you said, you have to set boundaries not for them, but for you. You
Mm-hmm.
know what you desire, you know what you want, you know how you feel. It's a case by case basis, but you have to have those boundaries in place for you necessarily, not for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Exactly. And I agree. I think a lot of times as women, I think our eagerness to be in a relationship and not be the one that doesn't have a quote unquote man, we jump in head first without doing any investigation,
Hmm.
without gathering any information, and we give them all the ammunition they need, right? To take advantage of us.
Yeah.
And I've seen this happen, with the opposite sex as well. Men, and you have some women who are who can be just as cold hearted.
Hmm.
So I'm definitely not saying that this is only a man versus woman thing, but I know this is more of a woman issue than a man issue. We run our mouth too much. Now, there are certain things you need to inquire about. Okay, let's just be honest, times are different,
Yes, they
right?
are.
And so
They
I
are.
said this last week, there are certain questions you need to ask up front, right? Like, first of all, were you born a man? Like, seriously, like, what is your sexuality?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Because I need certain information I need up front so that I can make a decision on how I'm going to move forward. It does not mean that I'm going to kick you to the curb, but it may mean I switch my intentions with you because I know what I want, right? And so it's not a judgment, it's a preference. And I think sometimes we get offended with other people's preferences, but it's their choice. It's their right to have a preference for something. You know what I'm saying? And so just as we have to set boundaries, we have to make sure that the man set boundaries, and whatever boundaries he set, that we don't get in our feelings about. If he say, well, I really don't let women over my house this early on in a relationship, why are you mad? Why you think you got something to be hiding? You know, I think we anticipate the negative too quickly instead of giving it time and space to see what it's going to be. I think we have such a high expectation, and they're unrealistic expectations, if I'm honest. I think a lot of them are unrealistic because, one, we don't have boundaries with ourselves, and so we don't know how to have boundaries with anybody else. And so if we look at our relationships in general, platonic ones, girlfriends, family members, what boundaries do we have in place there? And a lot of times there's not really none. And it trickles down into romantic relationships when we don't set those crucial boundaries that keep us in line with what we want. And before we know it, we're like all the way to the left and we're trying to figure out, but I want it to go this way. But you way over here in left field and you don't even know how you got there.
Yeah.
And so I think it's important that, one, we know what those boundaries are, that we have to identify them, right? So I said this last week, things are so different now. And I see, some of these social media posts with these women, and I'm trying to figure out what made you think that he's supposed to spin a band on you on the first date. Like, where they do that at? Like, I don't care if he is a celebrity. I don't care if he is an athlete. What makes you entitled that there has to be a certain... Now, I'm not saying you got to settle for McDonald's. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But the expectation of that he has to spend a certain amount of money, in my opinion, is unrealistic.
Yeah, I definitely don't think that should, and initially, if I'm, going to meet somebody out, I always tell them they can plan it, right? I'll go to the coffee house, go get ice cream. We can go to the park. Sit, that's fine. And I actually like it that way. Why? Because I don't want to be in a restaurant, right? And that's just one of, I guess it's a boundary for me. I don't want to be in a restaurant sitting across from you for an hour and a half and we have nothing in common, right? Like we can't really talk. There's no real conversation, or you talking crazy, So it's best for me if I meet you for coffee, and that's $10. That's $5 for me, $5 for you. That's $10. Right? That's $10. And, so I like to keep it simple.
I do too. I think in the beginning when you're gathering data, you're not really dating. If we would stop rushing into, oh, I'm dating, but you don't even know him.
Right.
But you're dating. And now you mad because you see it with somebody else, but y'all ain't dating.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so I like that boundary of saying, hey, our first meetup ain't got to be nothing elaborate.
Yeah.
Let's do dessert. I like marble slab. I like, we can go get us a cheesecake from the Cheesecake Factory.
Right.
We can go get us a something from Rita's.
Yeah.
And sit outside and talk on the bench, and it's relaxed. There's no pressure. You know what I'm saying? I like that boundary. I really do, because there's no expectation.
Right.
And
that's, to me, that falls into a time boundary, right? Like,
yeah,
I don't want my time to be taken up. You know what I mean? Like, just for hours and hours, for no reason. So it allows. Now I've heard that some people met at the park, met for ice cream or whatever and sat there for 6 hours or whatever.
Yeah, me too.
Right? And then they got married. I mean,
Yes.
right? So
Love
that's
it
a
for
little different. That's a little different. But like I've been in situations where I've met at a restaurant and it was, yeah, let's just say it was bad. And it, you know, and so my time was taken up, their time was taken up because it wasn't, you know, your money was wasted, right? And so, yeah, I do like the boundary of time. And, you know, I think that's important, especially on a first date.
It is. And you know what? It's really not even a first date. It's just us hanging out. I think because we use the term dating, there's an expectation when it's really not. In my opinion, it's really not a date. And I've done that before. I'm thinking, oh, it's a date. It really ain't a date.
Yeah.
Because you got to know somebody to date them.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
It's a meetup.
It's a meetup. You know how we was in high school and junior high, and we be like, oh, we going steady. After you done crush on somebody the whole school year, then you got enough nerve talking about y'all going steady.
Oh my God.
I think if we would put some of those healthy boundaries in place where we don't have all this expectation up front. And I think that's what is challenging in creating these healthy boundaries is because there's so much social pressure. And then you got outside pressure. And then you got, you know, if you're one of those people where your family was like, listen, you getting older, you ain't getting no younger. You got to hear that on one side. You know what I'm saying? And then you see your friends, you know, you're the only one still single. Then you have that internal pressure. And so sometimes it can be overwhelming. And we skip a lot of steps because we feel like we're trying to catch up.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
True.
And so I think we should not rush into, like, one of the safe boundaries that I like is I don't need you to pick me up.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I don't need you to know where I live because I don't need you stopping by unannounced because I don't do drop by.
Yeah.
Because I will look out the window and see you and sit back down on my couch. And you will hear me watching TV and I'm not moving.
Yeah.
Because my boundary is, I don't know you like you just can't pop up without checking to see if it's okay.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Nobody can pop up at my house. Like, you don't pop up at my house.
The only person that pop up and don't care is my daughter. She's like, oh, mom, you ain't doing nothing.
Right.
Where you going?
Unless you close family. No.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I appreciate that boundary. And to be honest, with the way times are, you don't need to be letting nobody in your house and you don't know them.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
So
And
for me, I've had a mixture of both. I've had some to where they were meetups, but then I've had one to where we would get to talk on the phone and got to know each other before we even met up, period. But by the time we actually had our first date, we had gotten to know each other. We had talked, you know. And so certain conversations did come up, you know, are you looking to date just to date? Are you to date, you know, to marry? Just finding out specific questions to see, okay, do we have anything that we're both working towards or not before we continue with this? I just kind of live and learn by what I experienced from each person I may have went out with. Like, you know what, maybe I should try this next. Just trying to still set boundaries for me, again, for what I'm desiring, what I'm looking for. Because I don't want to, you know, waste nobody's time, and I don't want them wasting my time. So,
yeah, you said something that was really good, and that is asking, what is your purpose? And I think sometimes as women, we don't want to accept the truth. They'll say, yeah, you know, I'm not really dating to get serious. I'm just kind of hanging out. But because we are so infatuated so early, we think we can change their mind.
Yeah.
So then what? You have no unhealthy boundaries. Then you start doing all of these girlfriend, wifey stuff, thinking, you know what, I'm going to change his mind and he's going to, and then when he don't, you mad at him and he ain't no good. And but you set yourself up,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
because you didn't ask the question. You didn't accept the answer to the question.
Yeah.
Believe a man when he say something, because he meaning it. He not going to repeat himself.
Yes.
I have learned that. When they
Yes.
say stuff, whether it's in a subtle way, you have to listen to what's not being said
Mm-hmm.
and what's being said, because they say it one time
Right.
and they mean it the first time.
Yeah. And
They
watch
ain't
their
like us.
actions.
You know, we say yeah, but we really mean no. We say no, but we really mean yeah. Their yes is yes and their no is no.
Yeah.
Right.
They mean it. And also watch their actions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
See what they line up with. That's another big thing with me. You can say something to me, but I'm gonna see how you come with it. Are you actually telling the truth, or are you just, telling me just to feed me lines? I'm watching
Right.
what you do.
Right.
And another boundary for me is, and I know, people have different opinions about this. People say, well, I date multiple people, or, now for me personally, I mean, this is a no judgment. Like, I just don't have time to date multiple people.
It's draining.
I don't have time to keep up with who said who did I say who. I just, I'm a little slow sometimes. So,
all up.
I'll forget, and I've been and called you something, and you be like, huh? You be like, oh yeah, that ain't you, huh? We didn't go do that. Oh my bad. I'm just saying. Now, some people do it, and it works for them. I don't want to feel like I'm competing. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to know that I'm competing. Like, we are competing, but like, I don't want to know I'm competing. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense? And so for me, like, that's important, because if you're one of those people like, oh yeah, like I date 3 or 4 people at a time, do you? But I will not be in that rotation.
No.
Not willingly anyway.
No, ma'am.
Right. Not willingly. I don't
So
want to.
This is interesting, right? Because Dr. Henry Cloud, so I follow him closely. And he talks about how you should date as many people. I mean,
a lot of people do, yeah,
people as possible, right? Many people as possible. And basically, when it's something that you on the list of the things that you absolutely just don't want, you just exit them, and you keep dating until you find someone who meets what you want. So I tried this. And yeah, it's very difficult, because like you said, it's hard to first of all, you might like qualities in several people, right? And it's hard to really focus on one person. How can you really give one person a chance when it's like somebody's one-upping somebody every other date, so it's kind of like, you know what, just forget it. I mean, so kind of what I've done is I have done meetups, and then if for some reason the meetup is just not, I can pretty much tell in a meetup if I want to continue the conversation on the phone and stuff. And then after the meetup, then I pretty much just cut it off.
Right.
That's what I've done in the past, until I have found someone who, I can.
Exactly. See, that's different. Meetup is you just trying to get to know somebody, but people actually date, where they go out and different things, multiple people, and it works for some people, and listen, this is no judgment, but for me, that just don't work for me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It like, I want to know that if we making the decision to date, I want to know that I have your full undivided attention.
Yeah.
And nobody else.
Know that you have mine.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I mean, it gets to a point. It's almost like it gets to a point where it's like, okay, are you and I going to focus on each other? Because I don't want to, like we just talked about, the boundaries and giving more information that's necessary, right? Like, I don't want to overindulge with people, with someone that I'm not potentially serious about.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Exactly. So, I know that there's differing opinions about that, but I know just personally, I only want to seriously date
Seriously,
that
yeah.
person. Now, if
Uh,
we're just now, if we're not dating and we're just hanging out, that's something totally different. To me, that's
Yeah.
not, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We're still getting to know one another, so there's no commitment. It's that's totally different. But when I'm talking about like dating, we've gone to the next stage.
Mm,
We didn't
yeah.
gathered all the information. We've decided, you know what,
To
this
be
is a
exclusive.
great potential. Yeah,
Mhm.
you know what I'm saying? Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's one of my boundaries. I would like to say another one of my boundaries is, as a single mother, I prefer not to date men with children.
mm,
And I
Mm.
know that may sound hypocritical. Howsoever, some mothers of children,
Mm.
that relationship has not fully dissolved.
mhm.
A
Yeah.
lot of times it's toxic, and it's just too much. And I just prefer not to be included into that dynamic. You know, I
But
would.
what if they have older kids? Like the kids are 19, 20, 22. I mean, they.
You know what? I have the same thing because my daughter's 27. You know, I don't know. I definitely ain't doing small kids. You know what I'm saying? If it depends on the relationship. Because you have to consider all of that if you're trying to date for marriage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because regardless, those kids are going to come first.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever their needs are, whatever their concerns are, if something happens, you know, and I'm not saying that they shouldn't. I'm just saying you need to consider all of that because it can be a lot,
Yeah.
you know. It can be a lot. My daughter is doing, she's an amazing daughter. I'm an advisor on demand. That's it. She don't need me for anything other than advice. Mama, what you think?
Yeah.
Mama, what you think? That's it. I'm blessed with a very unique and non-toxic situation, and it just works well for all of us.
Yeah.
We all get along. But everybody is not blessed with that. And I've seen some where there's been deliberate sabotaging,
Mm.
you know, um, because of jealousy or envy, and that is so draining.
It is.
And it's
Yeah.
really, and I really feel for those that have to go through that because their lives is just like that's why you got to be careful who you procreate with.
Yes, you do.
Listen, you got to choose wisely because that's a lifetime commitment.
Yes.
Yeah. That's
Lifetime.
actually one of my boundaries. Well, for one, I'm okay if he has children. I would prefer if they are, older, maybe teenagers or grown, but I'm okay with that. But for me, anybody that I speak with and talk with, I let them know up front, okay, I have children. Two of them are practically they're grown. One's a teenager, but I let them know up front, I do have kids, so you have to, be okay with that because they're part of the package, point blank.
Right. See, it differs depending on what age. I guess for me, because mine is practically, she's almost 30.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
for me to be happen to do anything less than that unless I'm having one, it ain't working for me.
I'm
Yeah.
not having no more.
It ain't working for me.
Yeah.
Depending on if the Lord bless me to get married in the next couple of years, I'll have one. My
You
daughter's
have one.
my daughter ain't for it though. She ain't for it at all. This mommy, I should with the age gap. I said, well, you can just help me. She was like, oh God, no.
Yeah. See, I because my daughter's 11, and all the way up until like 2 years ago, I really wanted another child. I actually wouldn't mind someone with a young child, right? So In fact, I don't want them one, right? But I want a young, like I could do 4, 3, 4, 5. I'm okay with that because and I want to adopt, right? So, I feel like I'm okay with that aspect. But I do have other friends that's like, if the child is not like older, then they won't. I mean, it's just so I understand both sides. And I'm more tolerant. I feel like I'm more tolerant of someone with a weird situation with the ex or something, because I got a weird situation with an ex, right? So I'm more tolerant.
It depends. Like, it really depends on your situation as far as what you can handle.
Right.
Like I'm past all the craziness, and it's like, dude, I ain't going back. I done graduated. I got my PhD. Listen, we ain't going back to 101.
I think it's also good to know that if he does have children, to find out how involved he is in their lives.
Oh, absolutely.
How do you get along with the mother? I mean, finding out the specifics so you know how to go from there.
Right.
Exactly. That's a big one for me, because if you got kids and you talking about I ain't seen them in 3 years, I need to know the backstory. Like, I'm not gonna just totally discredit you because I know there's some trifling mamas out there.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I need to know the backstory.
Yeah.
Like, I need you to be honest, like straight up, like why you not in your kid's life. And depending on the backstory, right? Then my follow-up question is, what are you doing about it?
Right.
Because as me and my brother grew up with our parents, and my daughter had both of her parents, even though we were young. I'm a family person. So for you to tell me you have kids and you don't take care of them, that's an automatic no.
That's a no.
Like, we can't even be friends. That's my boundary. Like, we can't even be friends.
Yeah.
I'm liable to call, be like, hey, he here, and this is what,
Yeah. And also what's important is the boundary that he has created with his child's mom and the boundaries that you create with your child's, father.
Yes.
Yeah.
That goes both ways. Like, you need to be honest. Like, if y'all still slipping and creeping, you need to be like, you just need to be straight up.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's why when you talk small kids, absolutely not, because y'all still talking. I don't care what you say. You go pick them kids up, that ain't all you doing. No. Listen, see, TV ruined you.
Right. Come on. Yeah. I think some cases that definitely can be the case, but since I know my case, you can't have situations where the boundaries are put up and it is what it is. Like, I want to know that, are you going to pick up the child at the child's house? Are you staying on Christmas? Did you stay the night so that y'all can wake up as a family together? You know what I mean? Like, these are questions that I got, to know. Or do y'all have a set place, and are y'all meeting at the gas station to switch the kid? Do you pick him up from school, and have him all weekend, and then he goes to school, and then, like, I want to know the arrangements behind it. And has there been any real boundaries put in place?
Like, I need to know, are y'all still sexually active? Like, seriously, like, when the last time y'all got together?
Yeah.
And if you have to pause, you know what? Yeah. Do you, baby? Because I'm gonna encourage you. You may need to just really consider: are you really over? Maybe y'all are supposed to be together. Sometimes people take breaks because they get irritated and frustrated with one another. I'm gonna push you to them. I'll be like, no, y'all need to get back together.
Yeah.
I
mean, that's important, because it's kind of like, and then another question is, why aren't you fighting for a situation? Like, why aren't you fighting to be with the family that you created? Right? If you created a family, you have a man, a woman, a child, maybe even two. Why are you backing up? Then that would make me just wonder, are they still?
Yeah.
Is there a possibility?
Yeah. Now, some people just crazy. I've seen some people just got caught up, and they dang. I feel for them people. I really do. because you got it bad.
Yeah.
You have it bad. You got
Once
it bad.
that door is closed, it's closed. For me, it's closed. It
Oh,
ain't no, it ain't no coming back. Mm-mm. It's a wrap.
now listen, let me ask you this because this is a good one. What about if he is still living with his mother?
It depends on the reason. It really depends on the reason. I mean, where you are you having financial difficulty as to where you were, had your own place and something happened, you had to move back home temporarily. Are you in the, process of trying to get back on your own? It really just depends. Now,
Yeah,
if you just been living with your mom this whole time and you haven't been out on your own and this and that, and there's not maybe a health reason or something, I don't know. It's got to be something serious or
yeah,
something just happened. I'm giving the benefit of the doubt, but I want to know why.
Yeah,
Because
it's
sometimes
definitely a
things do
conversation.
happen to people.
yeah,
Yeah, right. We're living in a time where people, are taking care of their parents.
Yeah.
And sometimes, things happen financially that causes you to temporarily, but for those who just be like, oh, well, it's just easier. Oh, okay.
yeah. That would be a no for me. Well, okay. So the question is your parents living with you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or, are you living with them? And while you're living with them, what are you doing? Right? Are you saving up all your money? Right? I mean, maybe, in the time frame, the 4 years you've lived with your mom, you've been able to save up 175,000. I don't know. I mean, if that's the case, we
I just love you threw that number out there like there need to be a good reason. Not
then
no
we
10K, not no 5K. I'm gonna need you to have 6 figures saved.
right. So you have, your parents elderly. They invited you to come back home. You was able to save up money. You are saving up because one day you desire to be married, right? And you knew you had to put down for a ring, a wedding, and a house. Then that's a little different than, oh, I never moved out. It's just always been good here. I'm comfortable and there's no real reason for me to leave. Because I'll find that those type people, they haven't really, like, they can't live on their own, right? So I know someone in this situation where they always lived with their parents up until the parent passed away. And they didn't know how to pay bills. Like when the parent died, they didn't know how to pay the light bill. They didn't even know where the light bill was, right? Like, everything was always taken care of by the mom. And it's almost like they had that mentality of being taken care of. And so if that's the case, that's a whole no for me. Like,
Right, because that individual is going to look for somebody who's going to replace
His mother.
that parent.
right. So you cooking, you cleaning, you paying the bills, you're, so yeah. No. But if you've lived on your own, you went back after you lived on your own, you moved back from out of state, you moved back in with your mom, you figured you help her out, you pay the bills, you've been saving, it's ideal, then we could probably talk.
Yeah, it definitely depends on the circumstances. Like,
Exactly.
you can't be boasting about it.
Right.
I got to know you're gonna be able to provide for me.
Because we can't ever have movie night. Like, you always got to come to my place.
Right.
Just for privacy, and we ain't doing nothing. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because I would feel weird. Like, you got your hand on me. Ooh, your mama here.
Mama coming out saying, I'm gonna bake y'all some cookies, here goes some popcorn. Like, nah, I'm good, Mama.
Oh,
I'm good.
No, it definitely depends. Definitely depends on the circumstances. It definitely depends. So, what about the boundary of cooking? Now, I will tell you this has been one of the ones that I have not done well on because I love to cook. I don't cook as much now. My daughter would tell you, no, she don't. No, she don't. Um, but that has been that has been a boundary that I have not done well. Because I just love that whole aspect of relationship that you're cooking dinner and y'all are eating together, blah blah blah. But then you also create a culture and a standard to where it's expected all the time. And it does not mean that there's a commitment. There's a commitment to eating. May not be a commitment to the relationship. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I feel like you should, I mean, that should definitely be a discussion. Like, do you like to cook? Do
that's
you,
what I was
you know,
about to say. Yeah.
yeah, it should just be a conversation. Like, I like to cook 2 or 3 times a week, right? Like, and then other times we can eat, ravioli, or you can you can cook, whatever it is.
You're dating, like how long would you wait until you actually cook for them? And how often are you willing to cook for them?
For dating.
So if we're exclusive, maybe like a couple times a week I would cook, maybe like lunch or dinner. I mean, I would like for him to know that I can cook. So maybe a couple times a week, but that's that's it
Yeah.
for me.
I cook, but I don't cook every day. Sometimes I may only cook, especially since the older two are, grown and out the house. Um, Sometimes when, my youngest, we may pick up something to eat, or we may grab something, a frozen dinner, someone pick up a piece or some. I may cook maybe twice a week, if that. It just depends, and it also depends on our schedule or how I'm feeling. Now, of course, with a man in the picture, I will, cook a little bit more. But as far as cooking for him for the first time, probably within those first couple of days, I probably will cook something for him, just as a kind of like a dinner date, something here at the house, not having to go out, just something different, something, romantic. But I would like if he's able to cook as well. That way we can kind of balance it out.
That's
But
interesting. So you said within the first couple of dates you would cook. I ain't cooking.
I would actually cook.
Let me tell you
I would
something.
I would cook like a dinner date. I would.
Listen, I'm gonna tell you, yeah, when I was in culinary school, blah blah, but I'm not cooking for you. Like, it's gonna be a minute before I cook for you. Because for me personally, that's more of an intimate setting. And it has nothing to do with being physical, but I'm inviting you in my home. And then I'm taking the time to actually cook a meal for you that I'm going to serve to you. You ain't getting that the first couple of days. I'm sorry. I done made that mistake. You could have got in when I was still foolish. See, you gonna have to wait on that. And I'm like, for real, like it may be a month or 2 or maybe 3.
Now you got to understand, when I say the first couple of days, I've been talking to this person for a hot minute now before we even get to that point. So I've gotten to know him. He's gotten to know me before we even get to that point. But yeah, I would, after we actually start going out officially, instead of us going to a restaurant. Yeah, I would cook dinner at the house.
I ain't doing it.
I mean, like she said, it depends on how many times we done went out, how long we,
Yeah,
stuff.
I got to be somewhat comfortable with you,
Yeah,
to do that.
because like
I really have to
nowadays
be
people are
somewhat
meeting
comfortable with you.
like,
I have to be comfortable enough for you to come into my house, for me to
yeah,
do that.
yeah. It's like nowadays people meet, I mean, they meeting online or wherever. I mean, you literally talking, you chatting back and forth, you're talking on the phone, like, you really talking to people, getting to know them, then all of a sudden it's like, okay, you want to, you meet a few times. And it's like, you want to be exclusive. Yeah, this looks like it could go in the right direction, and they have taken me to somewhere, State 48 or something. And and then after we have established, and I've seen that, you've taken me nice places. Now I'm like, okay, maybe we can cook together. Or you can come to the house, But you got to be at the point where you want somebody to even come to your house.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess for me, that this is a major boundary because I failed at that. So I failed in that area. So for me to feel comfortable enough I could invite you, we can watch TV and I'll make some popcorn. But that's about it. Like, it's going to be a minute before I cook you a meal. Like, seriously. Like, I'll tell you, oh yeah, we did this, but I'm not, because for me, I've fallen, that's my mess up area, because, us Southern girls can cook, right? And so we ain't cooking, we ain't buying no lasagna from the frozen section.
Yeah, so that's a little different because you a whole chef over there, right? So you cooking a different kind of meal, right? Like, I'm cooking spaghetti, the basics, right? So and some garlic bread and some salad out the bag, right? So that's a little different. That's a little different.
Listen, I don't care if it's a grilled cheese sandwich, you ain't getting it.
Like you say, you have your boundaries. You know your history.
That's my guard, because that's my weak point, because I love it so much that I get caught up without thinking, Shantae, y'all ain't really exclusive like that. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I've gotten so caught up in just the excitement, and then it's like, oh yeah, you cooking it? I hadn't planned on it.
Oh yeah, and if you get somebody who really likes to eat, yeah, they will be asking that. You cooking again today? And then they probably want something like hot roast or country style steak and gravy. It's like
you get one of them Southern boys who like Southern cooking. Oh yeah, what you cooking for Sunday dinner? I hadn't planned nothing. And so for me, I know that because that's an area that I've messed up in, it's an area that I'm guarded in.
Yeah.
So it'll take me a minute before, I cook you anything.
Well, I'm still waiting on my cake, personally.
That right there is why I stopped. Because see, people be expecting stuff. They be like, oh yeah, that cake was good. You make another one? No.
She doing us like that too. Oh no.
Oh my gosh. So yeah, that one is I've had to learn that.
Yeah.
That one has gotten me in trouble.
One of my mistakes is one of my big mistakes that God is still working with me on. I have a big heart, and sometimes I just, you love to help people, and sometimes you can get kind of too caught up, and they can take advantage of that. I'm, that right there, having to learn how to have a boundaries in that, because you want to help, but then I'm like, okay, you kind of taking advantage of my kindness, and then also when I love, So, and that was another reason why I don't want to date multiples, because I don't want to have feelings for more than just one person. That, to me, that's just not right. If we're gonna be it, then let's close this door. Nobody else can come in. You for me, I for you. Let that be it. But that's a boundary for me. Just knowing when to cut off. Again, but then it goes back to guarding your heart as well.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well, I'm just thinking about what you're saying, and I can remember a time where I helped somebody with their whole business. Like, they was doing a whole full-fledged business. They had ski trips, and they was doing like a whole, what do you call it? Not entertainment, but yeah, I guess it was like in the entertainment industry, throwing First Fridays, and I was helping the whole shebang. And then at the end of the day, it's like, I mean, it was just like give, 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 give,
Yeah.
give, give,
Yeah.
give.
Yeah.
And so you're right. I had to learn that.
Yeah.
Like, if we dating, I can't help you with your whole business. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not.
Yes.
For me,
Yeah.
I had to stop and say, you know what? I'm giving and I'm pouring into it, but what am I getting back? And it's draining.
Mhm.
Exactly.
It is draining.
We have to be careful. Hey, April. Hey, Crystal. So we're talking about setting healthy boundaries in relationships and realizing the boundaries are on us and not them. And so we've just been discussing some of the boundaries that we have struggled with, but we're going to overcome them.
Yeah.
Going to overcome
We
that.
are. We are.
And you know what? I think that is a challenge when you are a giver and you have a big heart.
Yeah.
You do things not because you need to be seen or that you want them to say, "Oh, thank you." You see a need, right? And you want to meet the need. And so what I've had to learn was every need is not mine to meet.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And even though there may be hints thrown, don't mean I got to pick them up.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And because once you get caught up in it, it's hard to get out of it clean.
Mhm.
Because, oh, well, you did it before and you don't have a comeback.
Mm-mm.
You know what? I may have done it before. However, I'm no longer going to do that. And then it's a whole issue. You know what I'm saying? So you definitely, like Tiffany said in the very beginning, if we're not guarding our heart from the jump, which means you need to know what you want out of the relationship. And you don't need to be afraid to say, these are my desires.
Yeah.
And you need to look and you need to listen and you need to watch to see, are they lining up with what you said you want? And if they are not, I don't care how fine they are. I don't care how good they smell. I don't care what they drive, where they live. It ain't gonna work.
Mm-mm.
Because you're settling and you're compromising on things that matter to you. Right. Now we know that relationships are all about compromise. You can't have everything your way. But when there are specific things that you desire, if you know you're dating for marriage, why are you dating somebody that's dating to play? They're not gonna change because they made up in their mind what they want to do. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think sometimes as women, we think we can change people. Listen, that's God's job.
Mm-hmm.
I done tried it. It don't work. Listen, I don't care how good you cook. The meal ain't gonna change them.
And they've done that. Yeah.
The meal ain't gonna change them, okay? It's not gonna happen. And so we have to be able to not be afraid of what we want. And sometimes we don't know what we want. And then when we look at something, we try to build it into what we want. Men are not Build-A-Bears. Okay, let me say that again. Men are not Build-A-Bears.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't care what we see on reality TV. Men are not, they're people. They're real people with real emotions, with real feelings. They have their own expectations. And so when they tell you something or when they show you something, you got to believe it because they mean it. Exactly, Crystal. They are not projects. And I think sometimes we take on projects thinking we can make them into condominiums.
Mm.
Can I say guilty? And I'm still single.
Right.
It didn't work. So we have to set those boundaries. We have to be able to say, we have to know what we want before we get started.
Yeah, I think that's so important, right? Somebody told me, because sometimes you're right, we don't really know what we want, so we accept anything. But somebody told me, make a list instead of making a list of what you want, make a list of what you don't want, right? Like make a list of what you absolutely don't want, start there. And then, obviously you should be making a list of, what, the things that you desire as well. But when you start dating somebody, if they're on that list of what you don't want, you need to exit immediately.
Yeah. And
immediately. If they say, like you said, oh, I'm just dating around, like I don't really want a wife. I'm looking for a good friend to go and hang out with. Well, that's not, you don't want somebody like that. That's on your list of what you don't want. You don't want somebody who dates around and all this stuff. Okay, well, they're not the one for you.
No.
So yeah.
I said this last week. We get caught up in potential instead of pursuing purpose. We see a lot of potential in somebody and we're infatuated with the potential. Oh my gosh, I can see this, but you're missing the reality of what's right in front of you.
Yeah. I'm guilty of that.
Listen, guilty. I only know because I lived
Guilty
and
of
I
that.
thought it was going to work. I don't care how much potential the man or the woman has. We all have potential. But the question is, are they in alignment with your purpose? Because if they are not, you cannot form them into the individual that you want them to be. Because you're going to get frustrated. They're going to be frustrated. Y'all going to be frustrated at one another. And it's just going to be, it's not worth it, you know? So I think we have to make sure that we have a boundary that we stop dating potential, stop falling in love with potential, stop wasting time with potential, and start pursuing purpose. Now, it doesn't mean that you kick people to the side because people grow and mature, but you have to know what you're willing to grow with. Does that make sense? You have to know what you're willing to grow with. You know, what are you willing to invest your time and resources in?
Yeah.
And I think once we kind of make that decision, I think that'll help guide our decision making when deciding whether or not to date somebody. Because you have to know we're all going to have to put up with something. And I'm not saying that in a negative connotation. And we all have to be like, you know what, I can put up with their sassiness. I can put up with, with his nonchalantness, right? But for some people, they can't handle that. They're not wired in that way. They need somebody that's going to be more compassionate, right? They need words of affirmation. So if all he does is be like, oh, yeah, that's fine, you're going to get frustrated. You're going to be frustrated all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so potential may be there, but they may not have any desire to meet that potential. You know?
Right.
So.
Yeah. That's why it's vitally important to really get to know yourself.
It is.
You know, I kind of like the saying, which I learned more and more when I first started back out dating, about learning how to date yourself. And that was hard for me at first. That really was hard. Like kind of trying to rediscover who I was or who I am. But the more you take the time out to do for you and learn you, when you do start dating, not saying it's going to be easy, but you won't be so quick as to settle. Because you know what you desire, you know what you want, you know what you deserve to have, you know what you have to offer, and you deserve to get it back. So it won't come as easily, to let your guard down because you know what you want and what you deserve. But you have to know yourself first. You have to do the work.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think too, another thing that's helped me is knowing what God purposed me for. Because now, if it don't look, I know that what he says will come to pass as long as I stay on the right path, right? So if that's the case, I don't want anybody that's going to veer me off that path or take me down a direction or make me depressed and, sad because so I'm so laser focused on purpose. If you are going to alter that, you can't come along, right? Like you can't, you're not the one, right? So, but that only came when I found out and realized that God had created me for a specific purpose. And once I knew that purpose, now I'm like, okay, well, you do this, right? And that doesn't really line up with where I'm going. Not saying it's horrible, but it doesn't line up with like what God purposed me for. So the boundary got to come down, right? And the fact is that I have to protect the purpose that God has placed on my life, right? So because I have to protect that purpose, unfortunately, you can't go, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that has, I feel like, helped me in my decision-making process. Just on, can that person go?
Yeah.
And then just straight up prayer too, right? Like God has shown me so much about, different situations and different people just by praying and asking him, is this the one? Right? And then he showed me, no, that's not the one. So then you got to set that boundary. We can only now be just friends or whatever.
Yeah.
And then, it gets, because I'm in my 40s, you know what I mean? So it gets to the point where it's like, now, come on now.
Come on, Lord. Where you at?
Where you at? You need to hurry.
Listen.
I'm
saved, sanctified, filled with the Holy Ghost, all that, but I'm human.
Yeah. And the weight is like, and we're setting boundaries like, should I drop this boundary? Am I being too, and then you ask yourself, am I being too rigid? You know what I mean? Like, should I lower some boundaries? Am I being this way?
Yeah.
And so, that, because you wonder, and then you got people asking you, why ain't you married? Like, what's wrong with you? What's wrong?
That part.
My mom was so ready for me to get somebody. I'm like, Mama, he coming. He coming, but I'm okay for now. He coming.
And but you bring up a great point in setting boundaries with people that you love and respect, right? Because sometimes they can push you to make you settle or compromise when that's really not what you want, but you're but you're tired of hearing them. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a different set of pressure. So we have to be willing to set those boundaries to say, hey, listen, I know what you want. And I'm so happy that you want that for me. But until then, I need you to stop bringing it up. Like, seriously.
Yeah.
Yes.
I've seen a lot of people that were pressured into relationships and they're miserable. Got married miserable. Because people
was in their ear. Yeah.
Y'all make such a good couple. Y'all just need to go ahead and seal the deal. You already been dating for 2 years. It doesn't mean that you can date somebody for 2 years. Doesn't mean you're supposed to marry them.
Right.
God could be saving you all both from other things.
Heartache.
And also preparing you for the one that he has for you, and it may not be each other. So there's just a lot of things for us to consider. But I think the main thing is, Tiffany said it first, was we have to guard our heart. And then Christy said we have to know who we are. Mm. I think when we are confident in those areas, when we are bold in those areas, it will help us choose better. Mm. And we won't have the fear of missing out in relationships because we're not in one. Mm. And so when we are comfortable with who we are, not saying that we're perfect, not being arrogant, you can be comfortable with who you are. Mm-hmm. And know, you know what? In the past, I settled, but I ain't settling no more.
Exactly.
In the past, I compromised. I ain't compromising no more. Yeah, you may have seen me do that, but that ain't who I am anymore. You know what I'm saying? And having just that confidence in yourself and knowing I'm worth it. You may not think that what I want is attainable, but that's okay. It has nothing to do with you.
Right.
And a lot of times we allow people to talk us out of stuff that we really desire. Now, I ain't talking about this crazy stuff that they be talking about today, right? I'm talking about reasonable stuff. You know, I want you to be sane. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I want to make sure you're in your right mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think it's crucial. Those things are crucial. So, ladies, I have definitely enjoyed you all on tonight. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. And in this conversation of setting boundaries, it has been amazing. And I'm gonna do better. Like the stuff that I failed in 2022 and previous, I'm not doing in 2023. How about that?
I just said that I'm not going to 2023 like this year was. No.
I am not compromising who I am. I am not settling. Listen, my purpose is worth the wait.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's so good. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, whether, man and woman, both, the purpose that God has for your life is worth the wait because he has somebody designed just for you.
Just for you. Yeah.
We have to be patient. We have to stop entertaining. We have to stop creating these Ishmaels. When Isaac says, I'm coming, I just need you to wait. And now you got Ishmael that you can't get rid of. And Isaac like, man, I was listening, but
Yeah.
That part. Yeah. Right. So y'all, listen, we hope that you have enjoyed our conversation on tonight. It has been amazing. So I am doing Dear Single Woman Conversations as a promotional for the upcoming book, Dear Single Woman, that you can pre-order now. And they will be available to ship out probably the end of January. So I'm excited about this book. It's been long awaited. I'm not even going to tell you when this book was supposed to have been released. Howsoever, I'm not going to focus on that because we are here now. So I am super, super excited. So make sure that go ahead and pre-order the book. So ladies, again, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Yes, it's been amazing. Yes, it has been fun. It has been fun. So you guys make sure that you tune in on next Tuesday night at 9:30 p.m. Eastern time. I'll have a different set of guests, different set of topic. Still Dear Single Woman Conversations. We're having adult and mature conversations on dating the opposite sex. So listen, if you have a question that you would like for us to answer, you guys can inbox me, or you can shoot me an email at info@greaterwomen.com, and we will answer the question on next week's show, because next week is the last one. Next week is the last one. So I'm excited about that one. So make sure you guys tune in. And until then, you guys have an amazing night.
Bye.